Yep, it's popped up. Yep.
So can I begin now? Or
Yeah, please go ahead and begin. So Keith, Tez is here. Event structure and differential object marking from perspective of Romance and Chinese. Take it away, Keith.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, here is the title of my talk. It is about differential object marking, and I'm going to compare Romance and Chinese. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge several group of people who have supporting me, namely Ronan and Igdor, both of which have funded this project of mine. Of course, my thanks to Professor Edith Aldridge, who encouraged me to compare these two types of DOM in the Romance and Chinese, and also to my supervisors at the University of York, to which an earlier version of the paper was presented in 2018. So my heartfelt thanks to every single one of these people for making this possible. First of all, for those of you who are quite curious, you may be wondering, why I propose to compare Romance and Chinese. First of all, a bit of intro for me. This is me, my first name. I studied at Oxford, some years ago. I then, did postgrad degrees at Manchester and York, etc. I was quite sad. I mentioned to Victor that that I couldn't come to Oxford to present because first of all, is that I'm a Chinese. I come from Hong Kong, China. So Cantonese and Mandarin are my first native languages. So Chinese has been a big part of my research. Exactly, yeah. As I was saying to Victor, I studied as an undergraduate at Oxford some years ago. When I did the classics and Romance languages. I studied Indo-European and Romance linguistics. I was quite sad that I couldn't come to Oxford on this occasion and to revisit my alma mater. But I really would have loved it, but unfortunately the whole pandemic has turned the whole whole world upside down. But I am an Oxonian at heart, so and I then did a postgrad degree at Manchester and York, where I moved into theoretical linguistics, especially formal minimalist syntax. So I've since tried to marry linguistic theory with linguistic data. So the French object marking has been a big part of my work because I presented work on Romance and the use of Romance and as a differential object marker at numerous conferences in the past. And simply with Chinese bar, where I've also presented at previous conferences as well. And here I'd like to extend my thanks and my acknowledgements to the audiences at these conferences as well for allowing me to investigate this case study with particular expertise. There's also another reason why I've decided to analyze your Romance and Chinese, and is that they seem to be quite similar. Preliminarily, Romance and is originally a preposition. It's been used as a case marker in its differential object marking functions. So if you look at the constructional schema, it's something like this. So you've got a verb and an add object. Add is originally a directional, a lative preposition, meaning to and towards. So it's directional. But in a Romanzo, it's been reanalyzed as a case marker. So it's verb, then add object. Add here marks the object of the verb. Chinese bar, likewise. It's originally a verb meaning to take or to hold. But it's been reanalyzed as a light verb. So it's likely to be a voice mark above aspect. The formal analysis of bar is quite controversial, and there probably isn't yet a consensus, although many scholars do agree on certain aspects of bar. I propose following Zhou and Sun that bar is probably a voice marker above aspect. I think that's a particular formal analysis that I'll propose in this presentation as well. Construction, it's something like this. The subject, bar, object, verb, object. There may be an optional resumptive pronoun in the second verb phrase. which is co-referential with the object between bar and v. But the main point here is that the object has been preposed after the verb to before the verb, and the bar comes before it. So this is the constructional schema which underlies this construction. They may look quite different superficially, but then they share quite a few sort of DOM properties. For example, the object properties. It's been pointed out by numerous people who work on these two constructions, and these two constructions are very widely investigated. There's a huge literature that's been devoted to these two particular constructions. The object, it's been proposed by numerous people, is it must be animate and or referential. Referential here is a cover term for definiteness and or specificity. Okay, so the object, it should be animate and or definite, specific, etc. It's also been proposed that the verbal properties should also be strongly affective, i.e., transitive. As we've seen later on, is in formal analyses of verbs, Aktionsart, etc. Affectiveness can be equated with a transitivity, and the verbs that are more transitive or transitive verbs tend to be those that are strongly affective. They entail some kind of effect on the object, which we'll see later on. But it's been proposed here that both add and bar should be used with verbs that are strongly affective. Okay, and so despite these clear logical, oops. You can't. You probably can't see the bottom over here. All right, so how can I move this? Can you read this last line here? You probably can't. Yeah. Okay, so I shall read it out then. As despite these clear typological differences between add and bar, they do share some empirical empirical properties. And so a comparison between these two case studies can probably tell us, what DOM is. So, the main point of my presentation is to define DOM. What is DOM? However, we mustn't let the similarities between Romance and Chinese, so disguise the differences between these two constructions. It's the most obvious difference between Chinese and Romance is that these categories are clearly different. Romance is a reanalysis from P preposition to case. Chinese bar, however, is a reanalysis from V to voice. So in terms of categories, these are clearly different. I wrote a paper earlier this year in the LSA annual meeting proceedings where I did just that. I tried to argue for that for the differences between Romance and Chinese bar by pointing out their categories were different. And these categories give rise to different analogical distribution, and that add and bar are used in different contexts. So, for example, in the case of add, the fact that it's in the nominal domain, people like Lisa Travis and Cinque and Rizzi, etc. They've argued that prepositions are part of the nominal domain. So, add is reanalyzed within the nominal domain, whereas bar is reanalyzed within the verbal domain. It's a voice above aspect, which is part of the VP shell event structure, etc. So it's within the verbal domain. And so clear difference is that DOM is can be implemented in different domains. And we'll see some of the empirical differences later on. My conclusion in my LSA paper was something like this. And Romance add is primarily a nominal marker. So it selects objects that are animate and or referential. Chinese bar, however, it's mainly a verbal voice marker. So it selects verb phrases that are effective and transitive. These have some secondary effects. So in the case of add, it secondarily entails that the verb should be effective and transitive, whereas bar, however, is secondarily of the case that the object should be delimited and not necessarily definite or specific. I'll illustrate these differences right now is that Romans at home, there are cases where adverbs and referential objects are selected by non-effective, i.e., stative verbs. So in my abstract, which I submitted on OSF, the examples that I used were something like this. For example, in Spanish, conozco a este actor. I know this actor, where a is obligatory. You cannot, drop the a, despite the fact that the verb here is stative. It's not effective. Also, in Italian dialects, it's possible to say, although I do not know how to pronounce it, but if I try to do it phonetically, te deve acquiste, I owe you this. Also, the verb here is non-effective. It's non-dynamic. But a here is being used in order to mark properties of the object. So here, Romance a is primarily object-based. K is used for marking these types of objects, regardless of the verb. With bar, however, it's possible to use bar on sort of indefinite and non-specific objects as long as the verb, the lexical verb, is effective slash a transitive. So for example, a famous example cited by Liu also in this bar, which you can't see, is 我把个机会错过了，我把个机会错过了, meaning that I bar an opportunity missed. Okay, 个机会, 个 here is an indefinite article, and here we see that bar can be used on indefinite as well as non-specific objects, as long as the verb here 错过了 is strongly effective, transitive, etc. So bar here, effective and telic predicates often entail delimitedness. That's also been proposed by scholars such as like Arita, Roseanne, Tenny, etc. Is that effective predicates tend to be telic, and if they are telic, they tend to delimit the object. So the objects in bar constructions are not so much referential but delimited as entailed by the verb. All right, so in this particular table, which is cited in my LSA paper, I've argued that the add and bar are primarily different. Add is more nominal, whereas bar is more verbal, and these have some secondary effects on the verb and the object respectively. All right, so the plans for today is that I propose to comparing Romance add and Chinese bar again, and to note their universal universal similarities as well as some of their differences. I was very happy to join the LSA annual meeting this January, and this was just before the pandemic began. So that was my last flight. From then on, I've been just I haven't traveled at all. I'm just stuck at home. So that was my last journey abroad. So I remember that quite fondly. And secondly, the LSA annual meeting is fantastic. For those of you who've been there, it's a huge event with lots of people just from all over the world. So I'm very happy to have taken part and to have published my paper in the proceedings. The one thing about the LSA is that it's so busy that you can't really do anything in great depth. You're given a very short slot where to present everything. So I'm very pleased to have taken part, but I believe that I could have done more, and I could have spelled things out a bit more and to do things a bit more with a bit more detail, etc. And you'll forgive my Chomskyan training is all right. So I propose to discover the core principles and parameters of DOM. All right. So this is clearly a reference to PNP. Okay, I'm proposing a Chomskyan formal analysis on DOM, and then whether we can find out some universal principles as well as some language-specific parameters. If we look at these two constructional schemata again, their similarities. Their differences, however, as I've shown in the previous slides, K and voice entail differences, different analogical extensions. One is more nominal, whereas the latter is more verbal. But analogy is really the result of reanalysis. I mean, formal studies on grammaticalization and syntactic change have shown that analogy is the result of reanalysis. Right. Okay. Then I must apologize to those who subscribe to constructional frameworks where analogy is taken to be the driving force of language change. But however, in parametric analysis, analogy is the consequence of reanalysis. And in this paper, however, I propose to be delve a bit more into reanalysis, which is the primary cause for a syntactic change. It's, as Lightfoot puts it, a catastrophe, the turning point of parametric change. And here, I believe that we can probably do more in order to unearth some similarities and some universals of DOM. If you look at the P and K and V2 voice again, as we'll see later on, is that there are some similarities in terms of the argument structure, which is what I'll argue to be one of the universal characteristics of DOM. Namely, the actuation of DOM formation, which is going to be the main theme of my talk today. Right. First of all, we should sort of touch base and just get an overview of what DOM is. Is that recently there's been a big explosion of scholarship and interest in DOM. For example, in the 2018, Serzant and Witzlack, they published a very famous, a very popular book in language science press called Diagram of Differential Argument Marking. It's very, very good. Seriously, they provide a very good overview, as well as lots of case studies from experts, on a whole range of languages where DOM occurs. It's highly recommended. And the way they define it is, so in the introduction, they give a broad definition of differential argument marking. So if I read this out, any kind of situation where an argument, here object, of a predicate, here verb, bearing the same and generalized semantic argument from / a grammatical relation may be coded in different ways depending on factors other than the argument role itself, which is not licensed by diathesis all alternations. Right, because I've put some brackets here because I'm trying to put this within the context of DOM. They look at DAM, D-A-M, so the differential argument marking, and they look at differential subject marking as well. But here I'm focused on differential object marking. Okay, so the argument here is object. The predicate here is the verb. Okay, that is object selected by the verb, and here. They say some semantic arguments, but I think they really mean grammatical relation, the same object relation that may be coded morphologically differently, depending on a whole host of factors, as we saw in the previous slides. Animacy, referentiality, effectiveness, etc. So. In this definition, is that DOM entails minimal pairs of objects. We can discover minimal pairs of objects that are differentiated in terms of factors I've mentioned in previous slides, etc. All right, so that's the beginning. One thing about DOM is that DOM actually goes back a long way, and people have always been interested in this particular phenomenon. And one thing I like about Serzant and Witzlack is they differentiate like I do nominal and verbal factors of DOM. They call it argument and predicate factors or triggers of DOM, which clearly feeds into my analysis here as well. And these are cognitive universals that interface with a syntax. We see some of these DOM scales right here. Thank you. Yeah, so for example, Silverstein, rest in peace because he passed away quite recently. Eisen and Kropotkin, they look at the animacy scale. Okay, so human is the most animate. Yeah, and there's animates of non-human animates like animals, insects, plants, etc. They find the inanimate. There's this animacy scale. There's also, this definiteness scale proposed by, numerous scholars here as well. pronouns, proper names, definite NPs, indefinite specific NPs, and non-specific NPs. All right, so there's this definite scale where the most definite categories, so incrementally scaled in accordance with their categories. And of course, people have fine-grained these categories even more. And there's person category, first person, second person, third person. There's number category, singular, dual, plural. There's also the categorical distinction between pronouns, proper names, and common nouns. If we try to put all of these things together, people like Dixon, Lazar, Klaus, von Heusinger, and Brenda Lacker, etc., they've drawn up this hierarchy that goes something like this. There's first person pronoun, second person pronoun, third person, and proper name, human common nouns, animate common nouns, and inanimates. So this can be taken as an amalgam of all of these factors that typologists have tried to establish. Yeah, so DOM factors are typologically robust. And also, yeah, here is a great thing. The verbal dimensions of DOM are also significant. The main factor, as pointed out by Serzant and Witzlack, is effectiveness. So transitivity. In Wendler's, classic classification, where he sort of distinguishes between stated activities, achievements, and accomplishments. In formal frameworks like Doughty, Helen Kaiser, Van Balen, etc. They use semantic primitives to try to model, these different types of verbal predicates. And the main point here, right? So if I just show these, a stated is be. Okay, we can establish a be predicate, which denotes state. Activity is do. Achievement is become, and accomplishment is cause and become. The main distinction here is become. Become here entails change. Okay, the internal argument here becomes something else, and this become has been taken as denoting transitivity. We can define transitivity in formal semantically in terms of become. And if a particular internal argument undergoes kinesis, which is another term that's been used to describe this particular type of change of state, the verbal predicate is transitive. And here, well, become in the internal argument can be argued to entail DOM as well. Okay, so these are the normal and verbal dimensions of DOM. Yeah, so if you try and put all of these factors together into one summary. All right, okay, so this scale that I showed you on the previous slide, and also this particular scale that yeah, so DOM is essentially a notion of markedness. The more marked a particular category is on the nominal and verbal dimensions, the more likely it is that it will be marked differently. So DOM in Eisen's OT framework correlates with markedness, really. The more marked the category, the more likely it is that it will be morphologically distinguished. Right, so these are the theoretical premises. I think we can probably drop into the data right now in the latter half of my presentation. Okay, one thing about add. For those of you who are familiar with the Romance philology, there's Romance add is actually very, very widespread. It's definitely not restricted to Spanish, even though it's most dominant in Spanish, to the extent that a typologist like a Boson calls it the Spanish a personal R, when actually it's probably a pan romance phenomenon. People like Rawls and Argentina, they've discovered evidence for DOM, the use of add as a DOM marker, in numerous Romance languages. And its genesis, yep, thank you. Its genesis, therefore, probably goes back to a proto-Romance, also to the Latin background, add as well. Now, people like Jim Adams and Pinkston, etc., they've looked at the use of add as a marker of indirect objects. That's also, very well established. But I believe that we can probably do some something similar in finding evidence for the use of add as a marker of direct objects. And here I'm going to show you, these classes of verbs, which are probably the most instrumental in the formation of DOM. Right, okay. Plautus. So this is, a full century before the classical period. From as early as Plautus, there's already evidence for add being used as a marker of direct objects. So, for example, verbs of vision. Right, if I try to go through this quickly. What's remarkable about verbs of vision is that verbs of vision plus add is a construction that's attested throughout the history of Latin. I can't go into each of these right now, but if you look at this, there's Plautus, there's classical Latin, there's Christian Latin, medieval Latin. Verbs of add, verbs of vision plus add is an absolutely huge construction. And as people like Jim Adams has pointed out, is that add here still retains its spatial force, so it's still a directional. And the way it's being used here is that the object of add is highly definite and specific because add is directional. This applies to all of these. But if we look at the second example here, respike at me, look back at me. It's highly directional, and the object of add is highly referential, etc. All right, so add here selects a referential object. In the Christian and the medieval period, yeah, so there are these early examples of servire plus add. Okay, servire plus add, where add replaces the dative case, as Rosanna Nicola has pointed out. And also there are these early examples of clamare plus add. Clamare is interesting because clamare originally means shout. In Romance, it means call. From shout to call, so there's a reanalysis from a three-place predicate to a two-place predicate. And so add here marks, it undergoes a change in grammatical relation from an original indirect object to a direct object. I found in the medieval period, we have servire a Sancta Maria. There's also verbs of begging, so poposcebat ad domino, where domino also marks an original indirect object, so people reanalyze as a direct object here. And the main thing to note is that add here marks human and animate objects versus inanimate objects unmarked. So in the formation of Romance DOM, it's layered. The first ones are verbs of vision plus add, where add is directional, hence selects a referential object. We then have verbs of serving, where add replaces the dative and mark the ethic dative. The object is a recipient and beneficiary, etc. Clamare, likewise, where add is also directional. You are shouting to someone, you're calling someone, so that person is the direction and also the recipient of the action. And verbs of begging, and verbs of praying, however, where add and ab are conflated. Likewise, it marks the beneficiary or the source of the verb. So we get the result that add generally marks some human and referential objects, as we have in Romance. In Chinese, right, I've got to be, I'm running out of time, so yeah, thank you. I'll go through this quickly. In Chinese, Chinese has a series of a serial verb constructions where the first verb can be reanalyzed in a serial verb constructions, and ba and jiang are just one of these. Okay, both ba and jiang means to take and to hold, and they're reanalyzed as an active voice marker. The main thing to note is that these are basically a monoclausal restructuring context, where an original serial verb multi-clause formation is reanalyzed as a single clause. Right. So if I go through this quickly, there are these cases where there's co-referentiality between the object of ba and jiang and the object of the second verb. Okay, so and since they are co-referential, they are liable to being reanalyzed as a single clause. So, for example, these examples which I can't go through. And in this reanalysis, the ba and jiang are reanalyzed from lexical verb to some kind of auxiliary. Okay, it's reanalyzed as a voice mark above the VP. And in order for this to happen, this is basically a type of auxiliarization where the second verb phrase is lexical, and it's auxiliarizes the first verb, as in the ba and jiang here. So basically, ba and jiang are being auxiliarized as voice markers, and they hence lose their argument structure to the second verb. Right. So if we compare a Romance add and Chinese ba and jiang again, is that all right. They both display these are verbal and nominal factors of markedness. And in the case of a Romance, is that add here seems to transfer its argument structure to the verb, because add here normally selects animate and referential and affected objects as well. And ba and jiang, however, in this reanalysis, the second verb phrase becomes more transitive or more effective than ba and jiang, which becomes auxiliary. They become auxiliary voice markers. So in these two cases, the verb phrase, the lexical verb phrase, inherits the argument structure of add and ba and jiang. So if we could summarize DOM is basically a transfer of argument structure, as shown in these two case studies. Right, okay, I've very little time to conclude. So if we could just answer the questions that I proposed at the beginning of my talk. DOM is basically a thematic and semantic phenomenon where the argument structure is transferred from the original lexical category to the main verb, as we see in in add and ba and jiang here. There are some parametric differences. So categories. The fact that P and K and V and voice are different categories in different domains give us a different analogical distributions. Right. So if I could briefly summarize the content of my talk on today, is DOM is basically a thematic and semantic phenomenon, and that in terms of categories, it can also give rise to different analogical differences as well. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Keith, for that talk. We've got about 7 minutes for questions. Please send your question in through the chat, or just tell me you have a question. Victor, if you'll go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please.
Victor. Hi, Victor.
Hi, Keith. Thanks for the talk. It's a question and a suggestion. So the question is, have you taken a look at Romanian? Because
Romanian, oh yes, of course. Romanian, yes, of course. Romanian also has this differential object marker called pair. It's often been it's often been compared with a Western Romance add. But the thing is, the one thing about pairs, first of all, I don't know I'm a Romanian, so I'm not in the position to analyze Romanian. And secondly, pair is etymologically different, from add.
But that's because since you are putting a lot of weight on the origin of the DOM marker, I was wondering whether you would expect differences in the licensing conditions between pair and add, because pair in Latin, that comes from per in Latin. It's an unbounded path preposition. It's not allative. So I wonder whether that has filtered up the grammaticalization path, and if you would expect a different behavior.
Yes, absolutely. I believe people like Alexandru Mardale has he is a Romanian expert, and I believe that in some of his papers he's already compared Romanian pair and Romance add and shown some micro differences. So they are generally quite similar, but Romanian scholars like Alexandru have already shown some micro differences. I mean, I can't verify the Romanian data because I don't work on Romanian, but I can speculate. I can speculate about the origins of pair, because pair comes from Latin per, a per. It's a beneficiary marker. You do something for someone. You do something on behalf of someone. So it's originally a beneficiary marker.
Well, spatially it means more through. doesn't it? So
spatially, yeah, but have I think in those constructions, the origins are more beneficiary. So you do something per aliquem for someone. I mean, that's my understanding. I've never tried to analyze the spatial meanings of pair, and I don't think that's the way that the people take it. But again, I don't work on Romanian, so I can't comment. But the fact that it's etymologically different from add shows that these are probably two different processes. So we shouldn't combine them or conflate them.
Yeah.
They're quite different, I think.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Well, while we're waiting for the questions, I just had a quick, maybe this is just definitional, it doesn't really matter, although I think it probably does, because I was unclear about the theoretical claim that seems to be coming out of this. So as you talk about it within DOM, that like this is differential object marking, and that this is perhaps distinct from differential subject marking and all kinds of things. So I wasn't quite clear why ba in Mandarin would not be just considered differential verbal marking, for instance. So I can see that maybe there's a connection in terms of historical process and markedness that generally kind of leads one to have more marked cases than anything else. But it didn't seem to me very clear as to why this is specifically about, say, the object. In any particular kind of way. So other than, you've got this schematic here, but it didn't really seem to me to be connected tightly to the object itself, but maybe I've just missed something, right? So is there like
I think that's a very a good point. I've never thought about that in those terms for differential verbal marking. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that particular term, but that does not mean that that shouldn't be a positive. I think that's a very valid a valid claim. But one thing, one of the main reasons why I chose bar was because it's often been cited in people who work on DOM. People who in the literature on DOM, bar is often used as an example. Typologists, they may be quite naive and superficial in choosing bar because, as you say, they are really quite different from differential verbal marking sounds a very nice way of capturing bar, actually, because it's more of a verbal marker than an object a marker. But the fact that it shows, for example, on this particular slide, it shows that roughly the same properties as other DOM markers as add. It shows that perhaps they can be correlated with more standard DOM markers, even if they aren't the same. But a differential verbal marker sounds like a very nice label there. I think that's yeah.
Yeah, the reason I was thinking about this is in part because, for instance, in the work on telicity, it seems like telicity can be marked multiple different ways across languages, right? So you get cases where English, where it looks like determiners or some kind of number thing seems to matter, right? That sort of set of categories there. You get case marking from Finnish, but you also get potentially particles in the Slavic languages, and those are showing up on different categories. They seem to be sort of distributed throughout the clause, and yet they seem to be underlyingly bound up in, say, either effectiveness or telicity or something, a maximization, right? There's various arguments for these kinds of cases. And so I wondered to what extent using DOM is just maybe more of a descriptive case. And then there's a question as to whether this is two things theoretically or one thing from, say, the point of one's competence or something.
That's a very good point. And I think of DOM, as I said, DOM has been analyzed, for so many decades. It's a huge topic in linguistics, and there have been several presentations in this particular workshop on DOM, and I think DOM has probably gained some sort of heuristic value, and the people they look at DOM in terms of these particular characteristics that seem to permeate in various linguistic examples, but then formalizing DOM in terms of theory is the next step up, and I think here more work still be done. So I think as you said, I think the DOM is more of empirical heuristic phenomenon that people have looked at. But then, you know, the formal analysis of DOM is still lacking, I think. So here is my attempt to, you know, making the first steps into this particular.
Well, feel free to steal differential verbal marking if you want from me.
Of course, and I'll cite you, definitely. I'll cite you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Keith. We're out of time now. We will have a quick coffee break, and then we'll be restarting at 3:30 p.m., 15:30 GMT1. See you all.